Hello, everyone, and we're back. Now, before we discuss Action Comics and Wonder Woman, I just wanted to point out these back issues we have, courtesy of Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for letting me literally raid your comic book rack. Some oldies in it, some Action Comics we got with Superman, young Superman and old Superman, and Superpowers, which, if you're a kid of the 80s, the Superpowers figures and the Superpowers cartoon, they were awesome. They had the little, I feel that they were the definitive DC comic toys, pretty much of all time. Just, they had the look, and they had the little action where you could squeeze the legs or squeeze the arms, squeeze something, and they had a little toy action. That was really cool, and I liked the comic books. But the reason we have them here is because we have the next segment is Superman and Wonder Woman represented. And when they fight together, they're a pretty good team. Do you have any of the old Superpowers toys by chance?
I do, yeah. I've picked up a few of those, and I have, they did, there was sort of a sequel series of that Toy Biz put out after Kenner lost the license, which were almost like the exact same figures.
Okay.
Just made by a different company, real slight little differences, so it's really, really weird. And I somehow ended up with, like, every variation of the Penguin there is. There were all these different differences. There was like, there was one that didn't have his coattails. There was one that had his coattails. Then there's the Toy Biz one, and it's like, that's a lot of penguins, but it's fine. It was 80s toys, variations galore.
I didn't even have a penguin. I'm gonna come and take one of your penguins.
Hey, sorry, Tom.
Well, let's get to Action Comics. Action Comics number 962, The Path of Doom Conclusion. And, well, just like it says, we finally get a conclusion to the fight between Doomsday and Superman. First issue, it starts off where the people that were trying to put Doomsday in some type of transporter to hold him, they get killed because Doomsday is very powerful. And at first it looked like they were going to succeed at the end of last issue, but this issue, no, they kind of got wiped out really quick.
Yeah, it looked real organized and very orderly in the last issue, and then in this one it's sort of revealed they're just normal dudes in black suits. And, one of them gets, what does he get, a knee spike through the chest?
Yes.
One of them gets his head stepped on. It's like, wow.
Very graphic.
Ouch.
And all the while, Oz is watching, and he is just sitting there going, well, my people are insufficient. I thought that maybe that he had sent them, originally they were the people that released Doomsday, and then finally they were getting him back because Oz is saying that he is just trying to determine how powerful this Superman is. Yeah. So he's watching, and he observes first that Superman is holding his own, and then he's starting to lose ground. And he was losing ground until these soldiers come and they give him a momentary lapse. It also allows Wonder Woman to take up Jonathan and Lois to the Watchtower. And she's guarding Jonathan and Lois, but she's itching to get back into the fight.
Yeah, and it really takes a lot of convincing from Lois. Right. To say, we're okay up here. Seriously, go help Clark. Yes. And it does kind of stand to reason. Could Doomsday even get up there? I mean, I could totally see him leaping. Just one big leap from the Earth onto the Watchtower, but, it seemed like a pretty safe place at that point.
Yes. They finally do convince, Lois does convince Wonder Woman to go help Clark. Clark had a plan, and the plan was to get Doomsday back to his Fortress of Solitude, where he had built a lot of relics and a lot of devices from memory that he remembered. And he was all along trying to maneuver Doomsday to get him to use a Phantom Zone projector because the intelligence for this fortress, he says, initiate the Doomsday Protocol. Yeah. And trying to buy him some time to set up this Phantom Zone projector.
Which was really just a bunch of missiles. Yeah. You think Superman would, maybe set up the Phantom Zone projector as the Doomsday Protocol. Yes. Like, hey, Doomsday's here, zap him. Yes. But maybe next time, Soups.
Yeah, he said you couldn't really beat him, you had to contain him. That's what he was trying to do. Yep. And Doomsday was too fast for Superman, but at the very end, Wonder Woman helps him out, gives him the few seconds to allow Superman to use the, if you want to call it the Phantom Zone device, and send Doomsday back to the Phantom, or not back to the Phantom Zone. But no, that didn't happen now, did it?
Yeah, no, Doomsday's transmission was intercepted.
Yes.
So he's now presumably stuck in sort of the same place that Red Robin Tim Drake is, in this sort of holding facility with Oz.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see what they need him for.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
If it's the same reason why Tim Drake was there. Because, I mean, the explanation Tim Drake was given was that, he had made too many connections.
Yes.
Or he had too many memories on him. And maybe it's the same with Doomsday. That doesn't really explain how classic Doomsday showed up in the New 52 reality either. Because there was a New 52 Doomsday around for a while, who, it's worth noting, could actually teleport in and out of the Phantom Zone.
Okay.
Too. So, if this had been New 52 Doomsday, Clark would have been a little screwed putting him in the Phantom Zone, only to have him come back on his own.
He would have been screwed. Oz was very adamant about Doomsday is now mine. And it was kind of, to me, getting the biggest and baddest player on your team. Yeah. That threw me off a little bit. So there's definitely some end goal games like you just said. Yeah. Let's talk real quick. Lex Luthor and Superman have another moment as Lex Luthor is still in Metropolis clearing the rubble, looking for survivors. One of the kids that he rescues out of a building, she calls him Superman. He is a little hesitant at first and he's embracing it. Then Superman comes in and kind of wants to have a heart-to-heart with Lex. Yeah, and there's still a lot of mistrust on both sides. I mean, for Superman, this is an alternate reality version of the guy who's, confounded him for so many years. And on the other hand, Lex sees him as another, maybe older version of the guy who he hated, for so many years. So there's still a lot of distrust, and it was interesting because I think Supes asks him, why wear the symbol? Yes. And it's like Lex wants to take ownership of that too. And so Lex, it kind of ends with Lex wanting them to be allies. He says, I think we have mutual interests. It would be the best. And Soup says, not right now. That'll come with time. So. Yeah. But Lex Luthor, that kind of motivates Lex to start investigating the Superman. He said he will find out the answers. It's funny, and not funny, but it's kind of ironic that they were talking at the Daily Planet, which has always been associated with this Superman, but now Lex Luthor owns it because Lex Luthor wants to kind of guard everything in Metropolis and keep it under his umbrella. This was the wrap-up. Pretty much what we get from this one is Superman, our Superman he's very strong, and he also can think, and the whole Wonder Woman made a point saying, this was your plan the whole time. Yes, it was. Get him out of Metropolis, get him to my fortress. I had a plan. Now, Doomsday is a lot stronger than even Superman. He was fighting with them for a while, then Doomsday starting to overcome him. Where do we see Doomsday in the future? Will we see him maybe when they start doing more with this Watchmen? Or is he just kind of off the board for the time being? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's also kind of cool how with both Action Comics and Detective Comics, those storylines sort of wrapped up with tie-ins to the DC Universe Rebirth storyline. They each kind of lost a character to this, this end, whatever this end goal is. Yep. It makes me wonder, are they going to be reinserted back in? Is that the end goal, to put them back in a way they can control, or are they just taking them out and then the others are going to fight to get them back in, which would mean they'd be trying to get Doomsday back into the universe, which would be complicated. Very complicated. Yeah. First story arc for the new Rebirth Action Comics, excellent. If you haven't had a chance to read it and you are a fan of pre-Flashpoint Superman from the 90s. This was a very nice read, and it also gave you little subtleties about the death of Superman and the return of Superman storyline. I recommend reading it. One of my Action Comics so far. I really like it. And the next story arc is we're going to find out the mystery of who is Clark Kent.
yeah. The guy calling himself Clark Kent. He seems to do a pretty good job of being Clark Kent, but he's also getting yelled at quite a bit for just being Clark Kent.
Well, in the weeks ahead, we'll just go on to the next story arc of Action Comics. Wonder Woman number 5, The Lies Part 3.
Well, we finally get some backstory on who and what Urs Kartaga is, aside from being the scary evil swamp thing, as Tom and I tend to call it.
Yeah.
Which is part of which we can't even pronounce his name half the time.
No.
But Urs Kartaga is basically he's a plant god. He's plants, hence the big jungle around Cadulo's fortress. And he's I guess to put it nicely, he's a very masculine god.
Yes.
Is that Cadulo explains that women would come to him and become his brides, and the ones who didn't please him were cursed, which is exactly what happened to Cheetah. So they end up in these sort of animalistic forms.
Yes.
And it's interesting, too, because when Cadulo is explaining this to Steve Trevor, he finds Steve's photo of Wonder Woman. And he mentions that, don't you want her to be yours? Yep. And Steve doesn't want that because that's not the relationship he has with Diana. But it was an interesting combination between having the top female character and now you're fighting basically a guy who's toxic masculinity. I mean, that's sort of the term. I think they used it in the comic at one point.
I think so too.
It's this sort of egotistical male desire to dominate women. So it's an interesting rivalry there that they're leading up to of Wonder Woman fighting Urs Kartaga. If he ever even moves, I'm not even sure the guy's flinched. But he is also trying. Cadulo's also trying to get Urs Kartaga into him. So maybe maybe the big Avatar. Maybe the big scary swamp thing is actually just like a husk of Urs Kartaga. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what it is the essence of Urs Kartaga can travel. It needs a shell. Yeah, and that's what Cadulo wants. That's why he's looking to bring people in to. Kind of please Urs Kartaga.
And that's why he's abducted all those children. Yes. Too.
And meanwhile, Wonder Woman is still on her way to Urs Kartaga's being led there. She's still talking with Cheetah and just explaining that Themyscira, if the gods deemed it worthy, that she could always find it. Now she can't find it, and the gods aren't allowing her in. Cheetah kind of says, well, maybe this is the way the gods are toying with you, or they're making a point. Is she not meant to come back? And then also they show with the different memories that she is having. She says, these memories don't feel real. They feel like someone is toying with me, and the gods are toying with me for a reason.
Yeah, because they had already established in the flashback issues that to get to Themyscira, apparently you do have to, there is a sort of godly protection over it. So that's how Steve and his crew got in the first place. So it would be interesting to see why has that happened? Has it been revoked? I mean, has that been revoked, so to speak, or are they keeping her out for a reason? I mean, is it malign or benign? And it's worth noting when they show all those memories too. There is a big sort of shard of those glass ones that has Ares in it. Yes. And it still makes me think he's got something to do with this. He's got to show up down the road. I mean, in my opinion, he's sort of Wonder Woman's arch nemesis. Right. So I would expect to see him at some point. And another character we see added to this story arc is Sasha Bordeaux, who's one of the higher-up leaders at Checkmate. She's kind of she's been in DC Comics for a while now. She probably most famously debuted as Bruce Wayne's bodyguard
Okay.
which late 90s, early 2000s, which Bruce Wayne wasn't super crazy about because, he's Batman.
Yes.
And so he spent basically, I don't know how many issues just trying to ditch her. Like he would, accidentally lock her in a kitchen or he'd go hide somewhere and have to fake that. Eventually he did have to bring Sasha into the fold, kind of trained her to be a superhero like him for a while. In this, we see Etta Candy is meeting with Sasha, kind of to discuss contingency plans about Trevor's mission to Cadulo, and also to mention that Wonder Woman is on her way there. So at the very end, they're discussing that. It's a lot of back and forth with Sasha kind of trying to get Etta to treat her as an equal, not as a superior. And finally, Etta goes and leaves, and we see Sasha doesn't seem to be acting of her own free will.
No,
there's
that was weird.
Cylindrical, robotic thing floating behind her, and she's in contact with someone who she calls Doctor. And the Doctor wants to move on to phase 2, but they need Wonder Woman for that.
Right.
And so they're thinking that Wonder Woman's almost to Cadulo. That might be an opportunity to take Wonder Woman.
Do you have any idea who this Doctor could be?
I was racking my brain. It's disturbing how much I know about Wonder Woman comics. I don't even know why. But
wouldn't this be more of Checkmate and maybe something else? Or
maybe I mean, just the way it didn't seem like Checkmate would control one of their own superiors. I mean, that just sort of seemed weird to me. I mean, in my opinion, Checkmate's sort of like the Shield of DC Comics.
Right.
I couldn't really see them doing that, but when I was racking my brain for doctors in the Wonder Woman universe, I came up with 2 names. There's Dr. Psycho, who's one of the, not really Wonder Woman's top enemies, but he shows up every now and then. Real short little guy who usually manipulates minds. Didn't really fit the point. But then what I thought was there was another character back in the 70s, a woman named Dr. Cyber, and she was like, I'm trying to remember. It was like a Japanese scientist, and she'd been horribly disfigured at some point, so she had to wear this kind of cool-looking body armor stuff. And it seems like she wanted to transfer her mind into Wonder Woman's body or something like that. So I could see that with sort of the, the real technological look of that drone behind her.
All right.
So we'll see. I mean, that might be red herrings, but it's also worth noting Dr. Cyber never came back after that. She was just really Silver Age only, and then they kind of forgot about her. So if they did, I'd be happy, but we'll see.
At the very end of this issue, they had Wonder Woman coming into the, I guess you want to call it the fortress, freeing the prisoners, and at the same time, Cthulhu had cut off one of, will you say the name of the character?
Urs Kartaga.
Urs Kartaga's, one of his kind of like, how, if you want to call them branches, you want to call them vines, and was preparing Steve Trevor for some type of ritual of transferring himself into Steve Trevor, or to bring Urs Kartaga's essence inside of him.
Yeah, sounded like it was
using
Steve as sort of like a lens for that, to a vessel for that. Which, as things go, Steve Trevor is not doing that well. Between being the the vessel for the anti-life equation. Yeah. Now he's now he's getting eyed by a plant god. Poor guy.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait for not the next issue, but the issue after to pick up this storyline, because they are doing the year 1 and the lies. They're going back and forth. And Wonder Woman's both storylines are very good reads. And this is kind of, I think, been one of your favorites as well.
Oh yeah. I love Wonder Woman, and this sort of alternating issues kind of makes you wait a little bit.
Yes.
Makes you wait for that the pay at the end.
Yeah, the past and the present, and eventually they will collide. And that's Wonder Woman. And with that, we're going to take our last break. And when we come back, it is time to really go unleash our inner kid with He-Man and Thundercats #1. We'll be right back.